Okay, so I'm going to respond a little bit to a comment that I got on the last video because I think it brought up some good points. I'm not 100% sure, but I think I'm understanding what this guy is getting at. So basically, what this comment said, I don't remember the username, but you know who you are, and you remember what you said. So if I mess something up, feel free to clarify. But basically, this guy was saying, he thinks it's a little bit stupid to talk about like duty grade when it comes to like guns and gear versus like competition only type stuff. And then he made the point, like, competition guns get beat up and probably get abused a lot more than most people's duty guns. He also did make the point, like, there's, some caveats when it comes to, like, drop safety and things like that. And I think that is pretty much spot on. So I'm going to talk a little bit about, like, competition grade versus duty grade, if you want to call it that. I don't really care, but there's some fundamental differences to what makes a good duty gun versus what makes a good competition gun. But at the core, I think what this guy's saying is completely right. Wherein he basically says competition guns take more abuse than duty guns. That's completely fair and accurate. If you've ever seen like police trade-in Glocks, you'll know what I'm talking about. They've got wear like here, like where the gun goes in and out of the holster. Sometimes they've been shot a fair bit. A lot of times, not a whole lot. A lot of officers are just shooting a few hundred rounds a year, maybe to like make qual and maybe a little bit of practice. So they don't really go through a whole lot of hard use. Versus any of you who are into competitions know that like, guys who shoot matches and shoot a lot of them, we shoot a lot of rounds. I'd say I'm on the lower end of like the round count for competition guys who are semi-serious. I shoot probably about around 10,000 rounds a year, and that's sounds like a lot to a lot of people. To me, I'm like, no, I kind of wish I could shoot more. Like, a lot of guys I know are shooting 20, 30, 40,000 rounds a year, and that would be nice. Like, I would rather do that if I could. I don't always have the time for that. I don't always have the ammo budget for that. Like, ammo isn't free, so you got to pay for it somewhere. And yeah, but I do a lot of dry fire. That's where I get most of my practice in. And then that 10,000 rounds is between, matches and live practice sessions, whatever. But I also live in a climate where basically half the year it's too cold to really go outside and shoot. I'll sometimes shoot at an indoor range, but I don't do that much because I really don't enjoy it. So, that's like my 6 month basically round count. 6 months out of the year, I go through about 10,000 rounds. And the other 6 months of the year, I'm doing dry fire. I'll shoot a little bit here and there when there's like a nice weekend, but not a whole lot. So some of those weeks in that 6 months that I am shooting, I've put 1,500 rounds on a gun in a week easily. Like that's not hard to do. It happens fairly routinely. So yeah, competition guns take a lot of abuse. Most duty guns don't really as much. So in terms of just like durability and reliability, I would say a competition gun has to be at least as durable and reliable as what somebody would consider duty grade. Like a Glock, I think, is a pretty good example of something that somebody would call duty grade. Like, these things, they work, they're reliable, they last for a long time, a lot of rounds you can put on them before you need to worry about much. And yeah, I would say like a gun kind of has to be at that level for me to consider it really like competition grade. Now, they can require a little bit more care in a competition setting, like guys who like 2011s and Shadow 2s and stuff like that might require a little more lubrication, a little bit, keeping them a little bit cleaner. I think that's acceptable for a competition gun, where it might not be as acceptable for a duty gun. But you still need the like durability and reliability. Like those are not things that I'm willing to compromise on for a competition gun. So I think what this guy's saying is he thinks it's stupid when people put a label on something as like, oh, it's only, competition good, not duty good. Like when people say that as kind of like duty grade is better than like competition grade. Like it's not really that's not really how this works. Like if something is actual like competition grade and competitive shooters are using it and using it hard and it stays working, that is a huge testament to how well that product holds up, because we're not that nice to our competition guns. Especially like our practice guns. Some guys will have like a match gun that gets babied a little bit more, and then they'll have a couple of guns that are just for like training and practice. Those practice guns, they get beat on. So yeah, that's what my thoughts on that are. Now, he also said, there's a caveat to like drop safety and things like that are just a little bit of a difference between, a duty gun and a competition gun. And that's also true. Like a Glock, super good duty gun. It's drop safe. Like you don't have to worry about this gun going off when it's dropped. At least if you don't jack around with the trigger and stuff. If you put certain aftermarket triggers in, you might have to worry about that. But with a stock trigger, you're going to be fine. Whereas something like, a 2011 or a Shadow 2 may be a little bit less so on that. There's, some guns that are marketed towards duty use that I personally think probably shouldn't be marketed for that because of their issues with being, not drop safe. So I think you're also completely right about that. Like not everything that makes a good duty gun makes a good competition gun, and not everything that makes a good competition gun makes a good duty gun. Like competition gun, you're probably going to want a little more weight to it. A steel frame is a nice thing that a lot of people like in a competition gun. That's not really going to be something you want in a duty gun, because steel frames generally require more lubrication to keep things running right, and they're heavy. Like if you're going to be wearing the thing all day, you don't really want a 56-ounce behemoth of a brass gripped Shadow 2 on your holster. You'd rather have like a 30-something ounce Glock without all of that. And then also like another thing, I think people get a little bit hung up on like modding guns into whatever they want them to be. So, if you get a Glock or something for competition, I would highly recommend not like doing all the internals different and checking with the way the thing works. Like I would say just kind of accept what it is and be okay with that. And if you want to put like an Apex trigger in it, that's probably fine. Those have a pretty good reputation. But trying to really like fundamentally change the way the gun works, like even this Timney in this 34, I don't know if I would do this mod again. I'm not saying anything bad about it. This one's been really good for me, but it gives me a little bit more hesitation to like fully trust this gun. Like if I was gonna take this gun as like a, if I was gonna go carry this gun as like a police officer tomorrow, I would put the stock trigger back in it, just out of peace of mind. There is a difference between a gun that works 100% of the time versus a gun that is going to work 100% of the time. Like the confidence in things, it makes a difference. It might not actually make a difference in how many times the gun goes off, but it makes a difference in the way you think about it and how good you feel about your stuff. So keep that in mind when you're, considering what you might do to your gun. Like this gun kind of doubles as like a home defense pistol for me. If it was, really a dedicated, like, defensive gun, I probably would put irons back on it just in case, but I don't think that's that big of a deal. Like, I've had to shoot an entire USPSA stage, just index blasting, and I did fine. So if my dot goes out, my home is not that big, and you're definitely still in danger if you're inside my house and I have a pistol with no sights on it. But like everything else on this gun, like, I'm not jacking with it. Like, I've got a stock trigger, I've got all stock internals, recoil spring, all of that completely stock. I've added some grip texture to it, but that doesn't really fundamentally change the way the gun works. And that's about the extent of what I would be comfortable doing to a gun that's for like a defensive purpose. You know, I've got like a brass grip plug in there that's just to plug that hole in the back of the Glock and add a little bit of weight. But yeah, like, I'm not doing anything that changes the way the gun works, and I wouldn't recommend that you do either on a gun that is intended for defensive purposes. Like, my carry gun is bone stock. I don't do anything to it. And a competition gun is a little bit different. Like, on this 34, like, this gun is pretty much just for shooting matches. So yeah, it's got the Timney trigger. I'm still not going to mess a whole lot with everything else. Like, it's still got the stock striker spring, stock recoil spring, because I still want the thing to cycle every time. I still want it to pop primers every time. Like, that matters a lot in the competition. If your gun has a death jam, like, you're not going to do well. So yeah, you need your stuff to be reliable in a match. You need it to be every bit as reliable as it is for duty. The difference there, obviously, is if your gun breaks in a match, you might lose the match. If your gun breaks in, like, a defensive situation, you might die. So that's kind of worse. No, it's definitely worse. But that's, I think, where people get like, oh, to be duty grade, it needs to really work every time. And they kind of gloss over the fact that, like, for people who are serious about competition, it's kind of the same thing. Like, you need your stuff to work every time. Yeah. So while there are some differences between what makes a good duty gun versus what makes a good competition gun, like, at the heart of it, they both need to be super durable and super reliable and be able to hold up to a lot. And most of the time, I would say competition guns are the ones going through more abuse and more, you know, round count than their, you know, duty gun counterparts, just because duty guns don't get shot a whole lot. Like, some guys out there are probably practicing a lot with their duty gun, and that's good. They should be. But I think in general, the average competitive shooter is putting more rounds through their gun than the average, like, cop or military person or whatever. It's just there's more the people who are shooting matches and stuff, they're doing it because they love it, so they're gonna do it more. A lot of people who carry a gun for work, it's just a thing that they have to have. It's not as much of a thing that they enjoy, is what I've gathered. Like I said, that's not the like, say that everybody is in that boat, but generally that seems to be the case. So another thing, like, other accessories that I would say are, you know, there's a little bit of a difference between, like, competition and duty. You'd be like a holster, you know, like, this is obviously a very duty oriented holster from Safariland. Like, it's got all the dinguses to keep somebody from ripping your gun out. But, you know, for a match, this might not always be what you want. You might want something more like this, where you can just grab the gun and go. But a cop isn't going to want that, because anybody could just grab his gun and go. So it doesn't mean that holster, like this Ragnarok, it doesn't mean that this is less durable or less reliable than this. It just has a different feature set. So that's kind of my thoughts on duty versus competition. It's a little bit of a different feature set, but then in terms of how good the actual performance of the products is, competition products have to be really good, or else they just don't make the cut. Okay, I'm realizing that in the next part of this video that you're about to see, I accidentally said upper receiver a bunch of times when I meant to just say, like, completed upper. So if I said upper receiver and it sounds like I'm talking about just a completed upper, I am. Sorry, I don't feel like refilming, so I'm just putting it in here. So another thing I wanted to touch on a little bit is a lot of people talk about like getting a cheaper gun and then modifying it into something better, or trying to like upgrade it down the road, things like that. One example would be like the Springfield Prodigy. A lot of people are into like getting that because it's the cheapest 2011 that they think is maybe worth something. I wouldn't buy that gun, but then they go and get like Atlas internals or something to put into it, and then they say like, oh, now it's just as good as a Staccato P, and I saved, you know, a couple $100 versus just buying the Staccato P. I don't know what the cost breakdown really necessarily is, but people are into that. I want to say it, I don't really recommend trying to go that route. If you're a tinkerer and like that just sounds fun to you, hey, like, go for it. But just understand that it's probably not the big advantage that people seem to think it is, and you're probably not getting the savings that you really think you are. So my example of that is this AR here. This AR has, if you'll notice, it's all camo, and then it has a black, you know, still black upper receiver, and there's a reason for that. So this AR I built when I was like 18. I just wanted to build an AR. I was trying to save money, and so I got a Bear Creek Arsenal upper receiver, and I wouldn't really recommend that you do that. And the reason being is it, you know, that upper receiver cost me about $350, I think is what I paid for it, like exactly. A BCM upper receiver, which is a very good upper receiver. Everybody knows BCM. They make good stuff. I think a BCM upper is going to run you between $700 and $800, depending on what options you want. So initially, yeah, it sounds like, okay, I got, you know, an upper for half the price. But then what ended up happening, because I like to shoot, so I got about 1,000 rounds in to that gun, and my bolt carrier on that BCM, or sorry, on that Bear Creek Arsenal, failed. It was a side charger, which is also dumb. I wouldn't recommend doing that either. And the little like charging handle thing for it just like went bye-bye. Like it broke and was stuck inside the bolt carrier. And I know there's probably a way to like, you know, get those threads out and put a new one in. Although I had like seriously Loctited that thing because I'd had so many problems with it coming undone. And then eventually I guess it decided, and if it couldn't unthread its way out, it was just going to break off. And you know, there were some other things about that bolt carrier that weren't really great. It had some issues, and so I just decided, you know what, this is stupid. I just want new guts for my upper. So I went and got a Wilson Combat upper receiver, Radian Raptor charging handle, and an Aero Precision bolt carrier group. Probably, if I could go back, I would have gotten a BCM bolt carrier group, just because I found out later these don't have the best track record, but it was what was in stock at Scheels when I went to go buy some new parts. So that's what I got, and I think I spent about $250 to $300 on that conglomeration of parts between like the, you know, upper parts kit for the upper receiver and the charging handle, the upper receiver itself, the bolt carrier, all of that. So, you know, now you're looking at another $250 to $300 in addition to that initial $350 that you spent. And I'm still stuck with the Bear Creek Arsenal handguard and barrel, albeit the barrel's been accurate, like way more accurate than I would expect. So good job on that, I guess. Bear Creek Arsenal, whatever you're doing to your barrels, for how cheap they are, hey, that's pretty good. I don't know how many rounds it'll last. We'll find out, I guess. But, and the handguard's fine. Like, it's not amazing, but it does what I need a handguard to do, so whatever. I've kept those. But I'd rather just have a BCM upper, like, entirely. That'd be way better to me. So, if I could go back, I would just spend the extra few $100 initially rather than spending it later on down the road. Because at this point, you know, I'm $600 to $650 into an upper that is, I'd say, considerably less good than a BCM that would have been, you know, maybe $750. So saved $100, but did I really? Probably not, because I'm probably gonna end up having to change out this barrel at some point, and then at that point, the cost will be, you know, like, I'll be right in there with a BCM anyway. So that's kind of what I would recommend. Just, I would say, as much as you can, get good, reliable stuff from the get-go. And I would, unless you're really into tinkering and that you just want to for the fun of it, I wouldn't really recommend trying to, like, upgrade your gun into something that it isn't. That's just my thoughts and opinions on that. Do with it what you will. I just want this to kind of help out people that are new and looking at getting into this. Like, if you're going to be semi-serious about shooting and competing, like, you're going to be harder on things than what most products are designed for. A lot of gun industry products are not really made with the intention that people are going to use them hard, and that's because, frankly, most people just don't use them that hard. Like, most people that go out and buy an AR, 1,000 rounds to them sounds like crazy. Like, oh, if I buy 1,000 round case of ammo, like, I'm not gonna have to buy ammo for years. And for a lot of them, that's true. Like, they're not gonna go through that all that quick. But any of us competition people know that 1,000 rounds goes by pretty fast. So understand that too when you're, like, watching gear reviews and stuff. I'm not saying anything against anybody who does, like, 1,000 round review of a gun. I think that's probably better than most reviews out there. But just understand, you know, I've seen a lot of those, like, 1,000 round review on whatever pistol. Like, how does it do? I expect any handgun to last 1,000 rounds. If it doesn't make it 1,000 rounds, like, there's some serious problems there. So yeah, 1,000 rounds, you're gonna go through that really quick if you're trying to get good with a handgun. So yeah, I like Ben Stagger's reviews on guns a lot. He's pretty objective. He doesn't really get too emotional about the stuff, and that's another thing you'll notice. Like, guys get really emotional about their gun because, I don't know, they're brand loyal or they like what they did to it, and that just is what it is. It's how people are about this stuff. But he seems to be pretty objective in the way he does his reviews, and he puts them through a pretty good ringer. Like, he doesn't really do a review on a gun until he's put like 10,000 rounds through it, which at that point, yeah, he's got a pretty good idea of what's going on, and he's a very good shooter. So I think his opinion on those things is pretty valued. So check his gun reviews out. He's got a surprising number of them because the guy goes through a ton of ammo. So yeah, if you're looking at gun reviews for, like, what gun to get for competition or whatever, I would check that out. Or any other competitive shooter that does this at, like, a semi-serious level. They're probably going to have some pretty decent insight. So definitely be sure to check a lot of those people out before you go try and save a penny on getting something that you think you can upgrade into something else. That's just kind of my thoughts. So hope that is helpful to people. If anyone's got questions, let me know. If you disagree with everything that I said, let me know too. Let me know why. I'm always curious to hear other people's perspectives. So, yeah, with no further ado, I hope that was helpful. Have a good one.